With the outliner, you can get a really quick overview of everything in your scene very quickly. You can find your outliner by clicking on this guy here all the way in the bottom, and this will toggle it on and off. Or we can go to Window and Outliner. So those two are the same. You can also drag it out like this as well, and now you have a floating outliner as well. Really useful, because now you can, maybe you don't want it over there, you can just drag it over here and you can dock it to wherever you want to. You can dock elements by just dragging them to the side here, and then you can dock it like so. So if you prefer the outline to the right, you can do that, or if you prefer it here, you can just dock it back here. One of the cool things about the outliner is that you can search through your scenes. So for instance, here we have all sorts of crazy named model. We can now just hit TR, and it will only find the TR model like so. Click the little X to get rid of that. Point, now you find a point light. We can also hide models as well. So if you want to hide this model here in the outliner, you can just select it here in the outliner and hit the H key, that'll hide it. If you want to unhide it, you hit the H key as well again. If you want to group something, we want all these models here to be grouped. We can now select them here, shift click to select a range, and then we can hit Control G for group. Control G is something you're going to be using a lot. We'll be in this outliner quite a lot, and grouping is a really important part of it. So now we have a group, and we can expand it by clicking on a little plus sign next to it, and now you can see that they're all here. What's the advantage of grouping? Well, one of them is that it's a lot more organized. For instance, now we can double click on it and call it model underscore group, and now we have model group. So it's just a lot easier to organize. But second off, now we can, for instance, select the entire group, and we can do stuff to the entire group. If we click on the move tool, we can now move the entire group around, which is really useful. Can scale all of them at once, and everything is nice. We can also move them up and down as well. A hierarchy can be important just for organizational purposes. So we can move them up and down by holding down the middle mouse button and dragging. And now you can see when I'm dragging, now it will, you see there is like a squiggly line over the entire model now. And if we drag it down a little bit, the squiggly line is between the two models. If we drag it between the two models, now you actually change this place in this hierarchy. But if you were to drag it on top of another model, like so, very subtle difference, but very big impact of it. That means it's now parented to it. So this means now you can see there's a hierarchy. So if you want to move both of them, you can select the top model here, and you can just move both of these around, like so. If you want to unparent it, you can just middle mouse button and just drag it out again, and now it's unparented like this. You can also unparent by hitting the Shift P button, and now this will unparent it as well. This will unparent it to everything. So now we have it out of any group. So if you want to put it back in a group, you just middle mouse button, drag it up here, and then there we go, back in the group. So let's make a group for the light as well. Let's call this Control G to make a group, and just call this light underscore group. You'll notice if we try to put a space here, let's just call it light group. The spaces are not allowed. A bunch of characters which are not allowed. So whenever you need a space, try to use something like an underscore, which keeps it really nice and simple. There's also a little trick here. This is something I only learned once I became after I started working in visual effects. You see down here, there's a little squiggly line here, and this means there's a double outliner. If you drag it up here, you now have two outliners. So why is this handy? Well, this is handy because now you can have you can open them both here, and you can drag from one to the other. Imagine this list here contains like 1,000 items, and this one is scrolled up. One shows the top here and one shows the bottom. You can now just drag a model from here and drag it up there. Now you just change the hierarchy, but it's really useful when you want to quickly reorganize big scenes. There's no practical use case for this small scene here, but for really big scenes, this is a lifesaver. And here's a little bonus tip. This is a little bit ahead of our chapters. We'll talk more about this later. But if you go to display, we have something called DAG objects only. This means that by default, you will filter it to basically only the real objects, like the models and all that. But if we were to disable this, now you can see here that we have all of this. And you're wondering, what the hell is all that? Well, these are the nodes in the scene. Don't want to overwhelm you too much, but this means that everything in a Maya scene is a node. And here you can see all the different materials. For instance, we have the different materials here for the different characters. So now we can go to Fong1 and we can just change the color of this real quick to something else. So this is a view where you can see everything in your scene. In the beginning of the video, I said it's a way to actually visualize everything in your scene. Like, I truly meant that. You can visualize everything in your scene, all the different items. So this becomes very handy for troubleshooting, but it's a little bit ahead of our schedule of our videos for now. So let's just disable this. And the only thing we have to worry about now is that we can move stuff up and down. We can hide stuff with the H key, hide it back up. We can rename stuff, and we can parent and unparent stuff. And that you can also move it around to different places, and that it will be enabled by clicking on this little guy here. So yeah, that's the outliner. We will definitely be using this a lot more in the future, and a lot of the small little things will just start to click once you get more information about how Maya works.